for CJ McCollum specifically, like if the framework is CJ and something for Ben Simmons, is that a deal you're actually doing from the team's perspective? Like, obviously you want CJ to go somewhere where he'd thrive. I actually think he'd be fantastic in Philly, but besides the point from that.
It depends on what you mean by the and something.
It's probably Roko is the only piece that I can only player, that I could really think of.
That you think would be somebody that Philadelphia would also want.
Because CJ is...
Or the Blazers could also part with.
Right. And because Ben Simmons is a defense unto himself, basically, which is tough to find. And if you're going to keep Nurk in that situation, I probably wouldn't. But if you are, like, you still have two really good defenders there. And I think you could play Derrick Jones Jr. a little bit more if you wanted to. So Roko is... And also, the thing with Dame, and why I think CJ, not that he's expendable, but you don't have to worry about necessarily who's going to be the second scorer because someone will be because of Dame. And also Dame scores in like the tightest of spaces. Like, it doesn't matter. He's played with poor shooting wings, which Ben Simmons is a very poor shooting something. He's a guard, big, whatever. So that's not an issue to me, which is why I also like Ben Simmons for the Blazers. But for the Sixers, like, I do think you need to, because Ben Simmons is so good, so young and under contract. And also CJ is pretty bad defensively. Roko softens that blow for them a little bit, even though he's not the best individual defender. That's the framework I came up with. I've been told by just people invested in the outcome of this trade, said that that's not enough for Philadelphia. But I think given where Ben Simmons' value is at right now, if you want to trade him mid-season when he's playing better, like if they traded him in March, I think they probably could have gotten more. But right now, I wouldn't give up more if I were the Blazers, but I think I would do that trade if I were Portland.
I guess because I'm in Portland, I'm looking at it through Portland cover glasses. And I don't know where 76ers think that they can get more. Like, I think they're undervaluing CJ and what CJ could bring to that team, which needs like a backbone. It needs the strength. It needs the leadership that CJ is bringing. CJ, who never doubts himself, who will, plays through everything. I think CJ would be, I think that he would fit in really well as a player and as that final piece of like somebody who can bring them all together, because like, who's the leader on that team? Like, who doesn't have, who's the leader on that team? Is it Joel Embiid?
It is.
Was it Ben Simmons? Is Joel Embiid the person that you want leading the team without some sort of number two who's like an experienced number two, who's an incredible number two, or number one if we want to talk about it in Star Trek terms? Like, imagine how lucky Joel Embiid would be to have CJ McCollum as his number one.
Right.
And you want us to throw in Roko too? I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think, or then throw back somebody, somebody else that can be developed as the, the other thing is with Ben Simmons is he is more expensive. Like, people are really mad about how much money is being paid to Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. Well, Ben Simmons is getting paid even more for longer. So, soften that blow a little bit too.
Well, I think if you're trading for Ben Simmons, I think you believe in Ben Simmons. And so you probably look at a sub 25-year-old on contract for that long as like the asset. I'd be curious to see. I agree with you in the sense that, look, and people around the league, they clearly feel the way that you do, because I don't know if you saw the rumored trade that the Pacers offered Malcolm Brogdon and a first-round pick. I'm assuming that first-round pick was this year's first-round pick, which for them I think is 12? I think it's 12 or whatever it is. That's not an offer that Philly would even pick up the phone for in March. And so if you feel emboldened to offer that, it probably speaks to what you're saying about Simmons' value. The tricky thing with Portland and CJ, though, is why I'm also attracted to the Ben Simmons scenario is if you trade CJ McCollum, you still have Damian Lillard. So yeah, maybe the Knicks are willing to send you young players, bunch of picks. Damian Lillard's not going to care about that. Like, Damian Lillard needs to win now. I think Ben Simmons is at least, as flawed as he is still a win now player for the Blazers. And there are probably very few scenarios where I think teams would be willing to give up a ton of value for CJ where it's not a very future based package, which again does nothing for the Blazers if they want to keep Damian Lillard.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you pointed out the fact that Ben Simmons is 25, and so when his contract is over, he'll just be the age that CJ is now. So that is not something that I had taken into consideration. The trades that you sent me, I'm trying to think of the one that I like the most. Oh, I like the Larry Nance one.
I liked it too, which makes me think that Cleveland won't. The trade I sent you was right here. So the Cavs would get Anthony Simons, Derrick Jones Jr., and I'm assuming he opts in, and then you get the 2023 first round pick with top 10 protection. They might see Simons as redundant because they have Sexton and Garland, and they might wind up with Jalen Green or Suggs. But I think people think they're going to trade Sexton eventually. So I think the value is at least close. And Larry Nance Jr. is entering his age 29 season. The Cavs are nowhere near ready to win. And Larry Nance Jr. is so good. I would love him. I tried to go with this trade actually for the Blazers in my actual article, but it felt like I was one asset short and I couldn't figure out how to get it to Cleveland. Like I thought, like if you sent Yusuf Nurkic to Sacramento, would they send Marvin Bagley and a second, or Marvin Bagley and Robert Woodard, who's a very interesting link to me, to Cleveland? Does that get it done? But Larry Nance Jr. is actually him and Chris Boucher are my single two most favorite trade targets for the Blazers this offseason.
Really interesting, because both of them, and as soon as they come to Portland, they're going to forget how to dunk. So how would they still be if they weren't dunkers?
I will say Chris Boucher will never forget how to dunk. I'm a huge Chris Boucher fan, so he will never.
You'd be surprised. 2 slam dunk champions, fewest dunks in the league. I wanted to ask you about one trade that you sent my direction that I don't understand.
Oh,
maybe I'll understand it. Derrick White for CJ McCollum?
Derrick White.
So first of all, how does that work? Does San Antonio have that much room that they can absorb that much contract?
Yeah. So to put it basically in perspective, if let's say they wanted to re-sign DeMar DeRozan, they could probably still just take CJ McCollum into cap space without giving anything back. And so Derrick White is also making $15 million next year because of his extension. He's injury prone. I think that's the risk there.
I just want to say I'm super insulted on CJ McCollum's part until you explain to me why he should not be.
Because Derrick White, I think, is a borderline top tier defender who can go up against ones or twos in a way that CJ McCollum never would have been able to. He can score. He can initiate the offense. I think he's probably a better pick and roll player or a better facilitator than CJ at this point. To get in at the ground floor of someone who's probably slightly younger. And then you're also getting a lotto pick that I had number 12 going to it wasn't Derrick White for CJ McCollum straight up. It was Derrick White at number 12. You could either use that in another deal, or you're getting in on the ground floor of a younger player if you want to groom or see if he can make an impact immediately. You look distasted by it. That was one of my trying to figure out non-Philly CJ trades. That was I think that's the only one I sent you because it's actually the one that I like the most of anything that I could come up with.
So I guess, yes, you did include the number 12 pick. The Blazers do not have a pick, so that would give them a pick. I don't know what they would, at this point, I don't trust what they would do with the pick.
And also, as I mentioned, Damian Lillard's not going to care about picks. So, there's that to factor in as well.
And, it would also reduce the Blazers' payroll a lot, which has been a problem for them for a long time, to put it mildly. I just don't know that it replaces everything you would lose from CJ McCollum. And I just think that there would have to be what other key moves do you think would have to be made? Or do you just think that Derrick White, is as good as CJ McCollum is right now and would be able to do all the things that CJ does?
He's not nearly as good offensively. I think he might be a better fit for what this roster needs. If you're telling me that Norman Powell is going to stick around, but he's not the level of shot creator. Even if I think he's a better table setter, he's not the level of shot creator CJ is. And that's the problem you run into with CJ. So I would understand your trepidation. I'm also a big Derrick White guy, so there's bias creeping in. The last one I actually want to run by you, I know you didn't mention it, but I was intrigued by it. Josh Richardson was awful this past year, but he is someone who can defend 1 through 4, basically, and has shown he can hit threes in the past. And has also shown before he went to Philly, there is some off the dribble juice there. And so I'm just wondering if Dallas is so low on him that the cost was Derrick Jones Jr.'s expiring contract because they want someone who could run the floor better, maybe play some small ball 5. Nasir Little, who, speaking of someone who's struggled to stay healthy, and then that story about him having COVID was absolutely gut-wrenching. So I take it into account that I'm just moving this guy's life. I feel bad. And then a second round pick or something would you be willing to take a flyer on Josh Richardson in that scenario? My thought there was just this kind of allows you to keep CJ and Dame together, and it all feels like it makes sense, even though you're still trending smaller to me.
So, I mean, there's definitely some pros to that. There, he's a wing defender. He also has, an expiring contract. So it's not somebody that you'd be like bringing on forever and ever. You could like give him a try and see how it goes and how he fits in. Overall, though, like, it's one of those things where, like, if you're telling Damian Lillard you're going to make changes and give him the support that he needs to go in the next direction, I just don't know that this is the move that sends that message to your superstar. I mean,
I would totally agree. It was more
like,
of
we're keeping CJ for you. I mean, and that's how Neil Olshey does things. He'll be like, well, you wanted to keep CJ, so this is the best that we could do. And this is like, sorry, that made a horrible noise. You wanted to keep CJ. This is the best that we could do. That's just so Neil Olshey. And I don't know that it moves the needle enough. It's, it's a super classic around the edges type move. That's like, I think the players that you have involved in the trade, like, I don't see that as a huge loss. And also I just feel, give them a chance to thrive somewhere else. So I don't dislike it. And you know what? You were the one who called Robert Covington last year, and I was like, and that's turned out great. So you know what? Why not?
Is there so it does seem like you think though they need to take a bigger swing. So is there, like, when you've thought of trade targets or CJ McCollum bringbacks aside from Ben Simmons, has there been any names that sprung to mind? Because, like, would you even do, like, let's say a CJ McCollum for Myles Turner and who else is that? Like, does TJ Warren and Myles Turner for CJ McCollum do it for you?
It depends on if Nurkic is still there on that kind of thing. But like, yeah, I'm ready.
Get the hell out of Portland already. I'm sorry. I'm over the Nurkic experience in Portland, I think.
I kind of am too. Like, oh my God, dude. You
don't keep him if you have Myles Turner, of course. Like, then there's another move that needs to be made for sure.
Yeah, no, I am, as a Blazer fan, I'm ready to, like I said, I'm ready to see something different. I'm ready to let go of the Nurkic experiment. I'm ready. I would love to be able to keep CJ, but I'm also ready for CJ to go, like, somewhere else if that's better for him. I love the idea of, like, somebody like Myles Turner coming in who, like, somebody with a proven track record of what they can do. I mean, that's why I like Jonas Valanciunas. Like, he's not like the flashiest guy or anything, but like, we know what he can do, and what he can do would be useful for the Blazers. I think it would be really, really useful for the Blazers.
Would you trade CJ McCollum for him though? You wouldn't.
No,
right? Okay,
no. That would be more like, I mean, Nurkic for Jonas. What else do you think the Blazers would have? Would Blazers have to throw in more?
Yeah, I would think Simons and then probably some sort of pick.
Mm-hmm. But I think just a change like that would be pretty significant. Or do you think that Jonas Valanciunas is too much like Yusuf Nurkic, so that they're not really that different?
No, I think he's he can actually shoot. So
yeah.
He helps the offense a lot. I feel like Nurk is better defensively and he's better as a passer. But if that's the cost, but
we're going to have Ben Simmons too. So,
well, and so I find myself trying to keep CJ and Dame together, because if you're not getting Ben Simmons back, I haven't really found a deal that I like, which is why I focus so much on, I would view Larry Nance as more than just an on the margins move, but you're absolutely right that a Josh Richardson move is definitely like, yeah, okay, there's like some upside there, but that's very much, hey, we're trying to remain intact, but make some sort of change. This is Neil Olshey saying, yeah, the roster was better than Terry Stotts could coach it too. And there's risk in that, but unless it's Ben Simmons, I just haven't found the CJ McCollum trade or return that like, even the Pacers one, I don't even know if I like it for the Pacers because of what that does to their defense. But like, TJ Warren and Myles Turner, like, yeah, I kind of like it, but I'm looking at what CJ does from a playoff scoring perspective. And now I find myself to being like, all right, you know what? Let's keep them together for another year. Can you do something? Can you do something medium? Is there another Norman Powell size trade in you without moving CJ? Is basically where I'm at.
I think Dame and CJ with a center who has a different look would be interesting. Dame and CJ with a center who, could play defense, but also can score from different places. Or maybe that's Yusuf Nurkic in his bigger role. Maybe we're going to see Yusuf Nurkic just unleashed and he's going to be able to do all these amazing things because he's been held back all these years. I don't know.